Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, man, and bending reality. And in this video, man, I got to call out my boy, Johnny Arnett, man. And once again, this is not a beef with me and Johnny. I'm cool with Johnny. He comes to the Sunday live streams. But I got to call this dude out, man. That's why I tag him in this video, because he said some crazy stuff yesterday, man. And we went back and forth briefly with the Scottie Pippen, James Worthy thing. And I said that James Worthy was a better shooter than Scottie Pippen. And Johnny Arnett actually took offense to that and actually tried to say that Scottie Pippen was a better shooter or just as good of a shooter as James Worthy. And then he had the nerve to bring up, hey, you want me to bring up James Worthy's three-point percentage? Like, Johnny, you're killing me with these percentages, man. Once again, you're exposing yourself here. And we're going to talk about in this video because James Worthy is a much better shooter than Scottie Pippen. I don't even know what Johnny Arnett was trying to allude to. And then he tried to say some other stuff about efficiency and Scottie Pippen's way he took the, I don't know. We're going to talk about this video because once again, I have to educate my man Johnny Arnett and Scottie Pippen's overall game. Because once again, it's been blown out of proportion by a lot of these guys that claim to be Jordan fans or claim to be fans of basketball, but they love to make up stuff about Scottie Pippen, and we know why. So I don't know, Johnny. We're going to talk about this video, though. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. I am truly, truly humbled, guys, by all the support, man. It truly means a lot. You guys sharing your stories with me, commenting, liking my videos. Like I said, it means a lot, guys. I'm truly humbled. Everybody in the membership, shout out to all you guys. Everyone who's donated money to my channel, I'm truly humbled, guys, for real. It means a lot. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, I got to educate my man Johnny Arnett because he said some stuff yesterday on the live stream. If you guys don't know, we did a live stream yesterday. It was an all-time NBA draft. All the players in NBA's history, and we did a draft, like a 1 through 15 draft. And it was good, man. I had a good time. It was fun, man. Like I said, we had some laughs. And we got to mention a lot of these NBA players that don't get mentioned a lot during most people's, most people's YouTube channels. They don't mention a lot of these guys. I mean, I don't know how many guys were picked in total, but it was over 100. And like I said, man, some great names came up. We had some great conversations, some great comments, and it was fun overall. But during the live stream, there was an instance there where me and Johnny had a quick back and forth. Nothing crazy. I try not to destroy the live streams. People get upset when I start getting loud, these crybabies in the chat. So I tried to get too crazy on these guys and like I said, go off the handle. But he was talking about Scottie Pippen. He picked Scottie Pippen for his team. And he made some comments about Scottie Pippen filling the role of a James Worthy. And he talked about Scottie Pippen out in the break. And Scottie Pippen gliding to the hole. That's literally what he said. He could fill that role of a James Worthy. And my response was that he's not the shooter of James Worthy. He's not a shooter like James Worthy. We talk about scoring or playing a James Worthy type role. He's not the overall scorer or shooter of James Worthy. And to me, that's pretty obvious. Anyone that really knows the game of basketball, like I said, from the 80s and the 90s, if you grew up watching these guys play, like I did, Johnny did not. Johnny talks about the tapes that he watched because he's not my age. He's like 10 years younger than me. So he wasn't around for that era to watch it live. And he could have watched all the tapes he wanted. That's great that his father taped a lot of those Los Angeles Lakers games. That's fantastic. But once again, I watched this stuff live. I watched Scottie Pippen live. These guys don't know about Scottie Pippen. He might know about James Worthy, but he don't know about the Scottie Pippen-James Worthy comparison. Because when I say that James Worthy was a better shooter or that Scottie Pippen wasn't the shooter of James Worthy, that's obvious. There's no argument for Scottie Pippen. But there goes Johnny Arnett, my man, getting a little loud, getting a little excited because once again, he thinks that he knows more than everyone when it comes to this kind of stuff because of the tapes that he watched, he thinks. And that's not how you judge basketball off a videotape. Like I said, I watched this stuff live. But the really thing that doesn't make any sense is that when I said that he wasn't the shooter of James Worthy, and then you have Johnny Arnett trying to come back at me and basically say that he does the same things that James Worthy does. That's not the case, man. And then he had a nerve to bring up, hey, you want me to show you or bring up his three-point percentage? Since when is James Worthy a three-point shooter? I don't see these guys like Johnny Arnett. They love to do percentages, numbers. It don't make any sense because once again, if we're going to go off the three-point percentage, Then let's also talk about the fact that James Worthy took less than 1 3-pointer a game for his career. I think he took 0.5 threes for his career. 0.5. And he shot, 25% from three-point range? So the man's not even taking a three a game. So once again, this shows you that James Worthy's game was not predicated on three-point shooting. But this is what Johnny Arnett goes to highlight that he is not as good of a shooter or just a shooter like Scottie Pippen. Once again, he exposed himself right there. And that's why I started laughing when he started talking about that stuff. I said, all right, Johnny, just stop it, man. He started getting all crazy. Not making any sense because there's no argument for Scottie Pippen shooting the ball better than James Worthy. He's just not a better shooter than James Worthy. His overall offensive game is not on James Worthy's level. Now, if you want to talk about James Worthy versus Scottie Pippen and Scottie Pippen dunking the basketball, finishing above the rim, absolutely. I'll give Scottie Pippen the edge over James Worthy finishing above the rim with the slam dunks, no doubt. But finishing around the rim and shooting is James Worthy all day. If Johnny wants to talk about numbers, go look at the career field goal percentage. Not even close. James Worthy is over 50%. Scottie Pippen's like 46, 47% for his career shooting the ball. If you look at the 2-point percentages, Johnny, once again, Johnny Arnett, you love the numbers, man. If you look at the 2-point percentages for their careers, it's James Worthy by a mile. It's not even close, guys. And if you really want to go to the true indicator of your overall shooting touch, then let's go to the free throw line. The one aspect of the game that's never changed. Never changed. Remember, there was not always a three-point line. The three-point line was moved in for a couple of years, then it was moved back. But there wasn't always a three-point line. Three-point shooting is not indicative of anything. If you're not considered a three-point shooter, we should only be comparing three-point percentages to the three-point specialists, the guys that are known for being long-range shooters, for having that in their game as part of their game. Right? So if you want to compare Steph Curry's three-point percentage to someone else's three-point percentage, and you want to talk about their overall games, then maybe you could do that. But once again, you're exposing yourself because Steph Curry's three-point percentage is not going to be the same as Steve Kerr's. And why is that? Because most of Steve Kerr's shots were standalone threes, spot-up threes. Steve Kerr wasn't breaking guys down off the dribble, coming off all these screens, moving without the ball all over the place, hitting shots on the run, on the move, off the dribble. He wasn't doing this. So the three-point percentage is not going to be identical. It's not going to be on the same level. So are we going to sit there and say that Steve Kerr is the greatest three-point shooter in NBA's history because he has the highest three-point percentage? No, we would be idiots if we thought that. Because the shots that Steve Kerr was taking is nowhere near some of the three-point shots that even Larry Bird was taking. So once again, when he talks about, do you want me to bring up the three-point percentage? Johnny, my man, you sound ridiculous, man. You sound like a straight goof when you say that. And you expose yourself in the lack of knowledge when you just talk about these numbers. Anyone can clearly watch the game of James Worthy on the offensive end, his mid-range jump shot, his ability to finish around the rim. Like I said, I'm not talking about slam dunking the basketball. I'm talking about little baby hooks, runners, floaters, things of that nature. James Worthy had a better touch than Scottie Pippen did. And that's not a knock on Scottie Pippen. If I had to rank them overall, I would give Scottie Pippen the edge based off of his overall game, his playmaking, his defensive ability, his rebounding. Overall, you could give the edge to Scottie Pippen, but there's an argument for James Worthy. The overall offensive game, the shooting that I mentioned of James Worthy is greater than Scottie Pippen's. Look at the free throw line. Like I said, the percentage from the free throw line will tell you a lot of the story there. James Worthy's like a 76, 77% career free throw percentage shooter, which is pretty decent. Scottie Pippen's barely 70% from the free throw line. Barely 70%, guys. He's 70.3 or something like that. Whatever it is. So you're barely at 70% from the free throw line, right? Where everything is equal. There's no one guarding you on the free throw line, right? There's no shot clock on the free throw line. You're literally there, right? The same distance in entire NBA's history, right? That's a better indicator of your shooting touch. You can clearly see Scottie Pippen doesn't have a shooting touch. But Johnny Arnett would not know this. He did not watch the NBA in the 80s and the 90s like I did. So he don't really understand what I'm talking about. Scottie Pippen not a shooter. These guys think that scoring the ball and shooting is the same thing. It's not the same thing, man. Yeah, there are guys that could shoot the ball, right? Mark Price was an excellent shooter, probably one of the greatest pure shooters in NBA's history. But do you consider him a scorer? No, you don't consider him a scorer. Just because guys can shoot does not mean that they're scorers. So when we talk about Scottie Pippen scoring the basketball, it's not the same as shooting the ball versus a James Worthy. The overall offensive arsenal of James Worthy was just greater. He was a better shooter. And Johnny Arnett tried to make some stuff up about the efficiency of Scottie Pippen, about Scottie Pippen taking closer shots than James Worthy, or James Worthy taking all of his shots in between 15 feet and in. What does that even mean? They're not making any sense. Most of Scottie Pippen's baskets were on the fast break, were going towards the rim, slashing, layups, dunks, this kinds of stuff. Scottie Pippen started shooting threes more in the second half of his career, right after like the 93 season, I want to say. Scottie Pippen started to fall in love with the three-point shot, and that actually hurt his game. Because Scottie Pippen's not a shooter. He was never a shooter. He never had the touch or the stroke like that. His shots were more line drive, which you can see if you watch the games. You'll notice that Scottie Pippen's shots were more line drive more often than they were arcing. That was just Scottie Pippen. Is a flat jumper. He hit the back of the rim a lot, the front of the rim a lot. This was Scottie Pippen, the line drive shot of Scottie Pippen. He didn't have the fluidity or the smooth jumper of a James Worthy, the overall offensive game of a James Worthy. And the numbers point that out. Johnny loves to bring up these numbers, these percentages. All the percentages point to James Worthy being more efficient than Scottie Pippen, being more accurate from close range two-pointers than Scottie Pippen. Once again, they both played with all-time great players, so there's no excuses here. James Worthy was getting good looks playing with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. The same thing for Scottie Pippen all those years playing with the greatest player of all time. You think people weren't focusing on Michael Jordan and leaving Scottie Pippen wide open? This is why Scottie Pippen was getting a lot of those dunks and layups. Everyone looking at Michael Jordan and him feeding off of Michael Jordan in the triangle offense. James Worthy could fit into any system, man. Any system and be effective because of his overall offensive game that he had that Scottie Pippen didn't have. He just didn't have it. Once again, this is not a debate on who's greater all time. If you want to argue Scottie Pippen was a great defensive player, obviously. If you want to say he was a better rebounder than James Worthy, a better playmaker than James Worthy, if you want to say he's a greater overall player, I have no problem with that. But you cannot say that he's a shooter like a James Worthy. He just wasn't. He never shot like James Worthy. And once again, that's not a knock on Scottie Pippen. That's the facts. And Johnny Arnett didn't want to seem to come to that reality and try to make it seem as if I was saying something crazy. I was saying the facts. Scottie Pippen doesn't shoot like James Worthy. He never shot the ball like James Worthy. Look at James Worthy's numbers in the NBA Finals. They both played in 6 NBA Finals, right? 6. James Worthy averaged more points than Scottie Pippen in those 6 NBA Finals, and he shot the ball much greater than Scottie Pippen did. What Scottie Pippen's average in the finals, like 44% or something like that? James Worthy's like 52%. So really, what are we saying here? Once again, Johnny Arnett wants to go to three-point shooting. You sound like an idiot, man, because Scottie Pippen ain't a three-point shooter. He's not a good three-point shooter. He's not even mediocre. Once again, James Worthy did not shoot threes. He averaged 0.5 three-pointers a game for his career. I believe Scottie Pippen averaged over 2 three-point attempts for his career. So it's a whole nother realm. And once again, Scottie Pippen wasn't a great three-point shooter. Look at his three-point percentage in the NBA Finals. It's like 28% or 27% in the Finals. What you'll notice when you think about Scottie Pippen, guys, on the offensive end, you're talking about the offensive end, shooting the basketball, your offensive arsenal. If you watch the Bulls back in the day, if you growing up at that time, what I've noticed, what you will notice from Scottie Pippen is as the rounds went later, Scottie Pippen got worse on the offensive end. His efficiency went in the tanks as the rounds went on. So in the first round of the playoffs, Scottie Pippen's numbers look great. Shooting percentages across the board are amazing. But then you get to the second round, it gets worse. You get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it gets worse. And then you get to the NBA Finals, and his numbers are just as bad, right? Like I said, below 45% from the field goal in the finals, below 28% from three, and barely a 70% free throw shooter in the NBA Finals. So once again, this exposes Scottie Pippen. When the rounds got tougher, Scottie Pippen's efficiency went down bad. That's why they were struggling in 88 against the Pistons, 89 and 90. Because Scottie Pippen was going down. He wasn't rising up to the competition. As the competition got more stiff, the defenses got better. You were going against better players, better coaches, right? Better game plans. Scottie Pippen went down. Go look at his career. From the first round to the second round to the Eastern Conference Finals to the NBA Finals, his efficiency goes down. All of this stuff goes down. So he's taking 16, 17 shots a game, and he's making 40% of them. You guys remember a couple of those NBA Finals, he shot in the 30s. I believe in 96, he shot 39% from the field. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And this is why Johnny Arnett gets exposed. And he doesn't have a leg to stand on. When he tries to argue Scottie Pippen scoring or shooting versus James Worthy, it don't add up. Look at James Worthy's numbers in the NBA Finals. Like I said, he averaged more points than Scottie Pippen on way better shooting numbers. Just the percentages were there. Once again, James Worthy playing his role, understanding his game. So he wasn't out there chucking up three-pointers or playing outside of himself. He played the role he was supposed to play. And as far as shooting the ball, and like I said, in being efficient, making shots, his overall offensive game, it was just greater than Scottie Pippen's. Once again, Scottie Pippen got a lot of his offense, his points, off of fast break opportunities, creating on the defensive end, right? Yeah, he'll knock down some mid-range shots, but he had a nice little game around the basket. No one's taking anything away from Scottie Pippen. He's an all-time great player, but he's not the shooter of James Worthy. He just doesn't, he was never a shooter. Scottie Pippen was one of those guys where he might get hot, he might be streaky, he might hit a couple shots. But once again, to me, Scottie Pippen took away from himself when he started to take more three-pointers in the second half of his career. Look at him in 1996, how many threes he started shooting. In 97 and 98, he was shooting a lot of threes because Scottie Pippen was breaking down physically and he was just settling for a lot of jump shots. And they were giving him these threes. He was shooting open jumpers. Like, no one's guarding Scottie Pippen on the three-point line when you got Michael Jordan out there. They're leaving him out there for these shots. Once again, James Worthy's overall shooting ability was greater than Scottie Pippen's. The numbers back that up. That's why I don't know what Johnny is talking about three-pointers. All you got to go on a three-point percentage, that shows that Scottie Pippen's a greater shooter than James Worthy. Once again, what are we talking about here? These guys with these percentages, it don't make a difference. Shooting is shooting. And if you look at Scottie Pippen, he can't shoot like James Worthy. Once again, look at Scottie Pippen at the free throw line. Barely shoots 70% for his career. Barely. But that flat shot that he had, that line drive shot that Scottie Pippen shot a lot, just wasn't James Worthy, guys. To me, James Worthy had a more polished offensive game. And I think that's evident in the video footage. But Johnny Arnett's going to sit there and tell me that he grew up watching this stuff. Oh, I watched all this Lakers stuff. I watched the Lakers, but you obviously did not. You did not. What were you watching then? You were watching Kareem and Magic Johnson, maybe. You weren't watching James Worthy. And I'm not saying that he knocked James Worthy or said James Worthy was garbage, but for him to try to make that argument or get crazy with me because I said that Scottie Pippen the shooter of James Worthy. Johnny, those are the facts, man. There was no need for a back and forth. Those are the facts. And then when you tried to say something about a three-point percentage, right there, you exposed yourself, Johnny. And once again, you're coming across as a guy who's trying to overestimate Scottie Pippen. You're trying to pump Scottie Pippen up and put him in a realm that he's not in. And we know why you're doing this, Johnny, because we know you're a closet LeBron James fan. I know you are, man. Some of the things that you say on the live stream, you called Jordan Simps. Like, you say crazy things, man. You say crazy stuff, Johnny. But you don't know the game like I do from the 80s and the 90s. You just don't, man. And once again, all the evidence points to James Worthy being a better shooter than Scottie Pippen. Not saying he's a greater overall player or any of these things. Those are just the facts. Like if I say Scottie Pippen was a great defensive player, those are just the facts, right? Then James Worthy, that's not an argument. There's no argument for Scottie Pippen's shooting ability over James Worthy. Even the scoring, it wasn't there. James Worthy has a higher scoring average for his career than Scottie Pippen. Once again, man, James Worthy overall offensive game, his shooting ability was greater than Scottie Pippen's, whether it's the mid-range or was closer to the rim. Give me James Worthy's touch. Like I said, I'm not saying that he's a greater player. I would take Scottie Pippen probably over a James Worthy. But that's a conversation. James Worthy won a Finals MVP, playing alongside Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he won a Finals MVP. He was able to do that. Why? By putting up a triple-double in a Game 7. Scottie Pippen will never do something like that. He's never done that. Once again, James Worthy averages more points on better shooting in the finals than Scottie Pippen does. Than he does. So, this whole percentage that Johnny was trying to put out there about his three-point, you want me to put the three-point percentage up? Like, put the three-point percentage up, Johnny. So Scottie Pippen shoots better from three than James Worthy, who never took the threes. What does that mean? Once again, are we going to say that Steve Kerr's shooting is a better shooter than Steph Curry because his percentage is higher? No, because you look at the kind of shots they were taking. If James Worthy's not taking three-pointers, I'm not judging his poor three-point percentage when the man came in 1983 and the NBA introduced a three-point line in 1980. I'm so tired of guys bring up three-point percentage as an indicator of your shooting overall ability. Once again, let's go to the free throw line, a true indicator of your touch from shooting. And Scottie Pippen was a poor free throw shooter. James Worthy was a much better free throw shooter, man. He was just more consistent. And once again, his nickname is Big Game James. He got a Finals MVP. Scottie Pippen played in 6 finals, just like James Worthy. Never won a Finals MVP. Never once. Once again, Michael Jordan had to carry the Bulls offensively every single season because Scottie Pippen could not score or shoot the ball like a James Worthy. Scottie Pippen was a greater slasher, like I said, a greater dunker, finisher at the rim than a James Worthy. I'll give him that. But shooting the ball, the touch around the rim on the perimeter, it's James Worthy all day. And like I said, just the offensive moves that James Worthy had, right? His skills on the offensive end were greater than Scottie Pippen's. They just were. So this is my man Johnny Arnett. I don't know if he'll see this video. It's irrelevant because the facts remain. Scottie Pippen will never be the shooter, was never the shooter of a James Worthy. Those are just the facts. That's not a knock on Scottie Pippen. I'm not saying that James Worthy is a greater player than Scottie Pippen. I'm not saying this stuff. But Johnny, you're wrong on this, man. And you don't make any sense when you try to throw out a three-point percentage as if you're knocking James Worthy because he had a poor three-point percentage. He was never a three-point shooter. And then he tried to say something about his percentages and the efficiency of Scottie Pippen and the kinds of shots that they were taking. They were both taking similar shots, Johnny. They were both taking similar shots. Yes, Scottie Pippen may have taken a couple more threes a game. James Worthy wasn't doing that. But once again, that goes on Scottie Pippen. That's a knock on him because he was never a three-point shooter. He never had that shot, never had that touch. But he wanted to fall in love with the three-point shot once again because he was breaking down physically and he was settling for a lot of these shots, Scottie Pippen, settling. That took away from his greatness. That was never James Worthy. James Worthy played his game from the beginning of his career to the end of his career. He played that game, right? Remember, he played in North Carolina with Michael Jordan. He understood the team game. He developed at North Carolina. These guys played several seasons back in the day. And James Worthy had an offensive game, overall offensive game, man. He was a contributor on the offensive end, just like Scottie Pippen was, but not in the way that Scottie Pippen was. You guys know the deal. Like I said, Scottie Pippen will get more points on the fast break than a James Worthy. He might get more points, like I said, creating defense and turning it into offense than a James Worthy. And like I said, you can maybe argue, Scottie Pippen was a greater rebounder, especially on the offensive board. Scottie Pippen was a very good offensive rebounder at that small forward position. So once again, if you go overall game, I'll go with Scottie Pippen. But shooting the ball, to me, that was Scottie Pippen's biggest weakness, was his shooting the ball. He was never a shooter, not on James Worthy level. Those are the facts, guys. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.